Good afternoon, everyone. I know we can do better than that. Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's been a long day. There's been a lot of good information, so I know you all are soaking it in. So just very important that I'm happy just to be a part of this process. And again, I want to just welcome you to the first Black Developers Conference. And this panel is gaining support for your project, making your pitch. So anytime that you're doing development, of course, you know you have your idea, you have your location, but one of the main things that you need to have involved is making sure that you have support of the community. So it's very important that we have these conversations so that as developers, when we get out here and start to do these development projects, that we are making sure we have all our ducks lined in a row. So again, just want to welcome you here. First and foremost, just want to introduce myself as moderator. My name is Marcus Parish, First Vice President of the Greater Cincinnati Realtors Association, real estate agent, 15 years with Keller Williams Advisors Realty, and also founder and owner of Parish Development Group. So myself is a developer and looking to learn from this event. So I want to introduce our panelists, which I'm very excited. Our panelists have a wealth of knowledge, so I'm happy to be on this panel. A few of the panelists and members I know personally, I grew up with. Some we grew up in the same neighborhood, so we have an understanding of our backgrounds, where we came from, and what we're trying to do in our communities. So first, I'm going to introduce Ms. Kate Bodos, Nick Johnson, and Tony Jones. So first, if Ms. Kate Bodos, if you can just give us an introduction of yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Bodos. You said it correctly. Nobody ever does that, so thank you. I've been working in the community in Madisonville for the past several years. I'm the past Madisonville Community Council president. I'm currently the sitting vice president as well as the education chair. A little bit about my background. I work for GE Aerospace by trade, but I've been well-versed in development and all things community, probably going on, we'll just say, most of my life, and we won't talk about how old I am. But like I said, I currently am in Madisonville. I also sit on the Welcome House board for Northern Kentucky, as well as Arts Waves Leadership Roundtable Steering Committee for Women. Everything about the community is so important, and to your point, listening to the community when it comes to figuring out what your pitch is and where you see your development and the process going are so very important.
Thank you. Nick Johnson.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Johnson. I'm a managing partner of Bach Development. We're located in the West End. I know it sounds strange, but the West End has development coming. 30 years in the makings. And my whole process of this development thing, it wasn't something that I chose. It came to me pretty much. God knew what we needed in our community. He knew the leader that can do it, and he put the people around us. It started with that TQL stadium. They couldn't have got that stadium in my community without me. In exchange, I didn't want a personal gain. I needed my community developed, and I wanted to be the one to develop it. Didn't know nothing about development, so they put me with Jeff, and we developed that stadium. I didn't know I was in school at the time, but I was in school. And when I quit, they looked at me like, what? I said, man, I didn't come here to be a construction worker or work for you. I came here to develop my community, the West End. And now we have 7 projects in the pipeline, $500 to $1 billion, along with their $300 million. So yeah, the West End getting development.
That's powerful. And introducing my brother, Tony Jones.
Nick Johnson.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing today? Good, good. My name is Tony Jones. I am the principal owner of Monopoly Men Construction and Real Estate Firm. We are a mixed-use development firm based right out of here out of Cincinnati, Ohio. I have similar beginnings like all of these great people here where, I saw a problem, and I saw a way that I can add value, and that's what really got me into real estate. I started off as an agent, as a regular residential agent, just doing retail work, and shortly after I realized that there was a lot more that I can do for the community that I lived in and I was connected to, right? And so at that point, we decided to get into activating what I call activating neighborhoods, right? Going into neighborhoods that are undervalued and adding value by increasing the value of the real estate, right? When people have homes that look the part, that, they can appreciate, they tend to take better care of the homes and of the neighborhood when it looks like something. And so that was something that I noticed early in our career. When I started flipping houses, I was actually out in Indianapolis when I first started flipping, and we activated maybe 4 or 5 different neighborhoods out of Indianapolis. And while I was out in Indianapolis, right, that's not my hometown. I'm from here. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, right? And I realized, I should bring what it is that I'm doing down from Indy to Cincinnati. And when I got down to Cincinnati and we started doing this work, I met good brothers like Nick, and I had already knew, different people around the city. And I fell in love with a few neighborhoods that we are really focusing on now, and that is the West End and Bond Hill. And so fast forward, we own a $2 million portfolio of rental properties. We do short-term rentals, and now we are working on a mixed-use development in the West End on Bay Miller Street, which is going to be 8 total units, 7 residential, 1 commercial, and we were just actually awarded a NOFA grant for as well too to execute that development. And so thank you so much. I'm just blessed to be here to be able to share the information. This is the reason why I got into real estate and the reason why I do speaking engagements like this, because our people don't really have enough access to information, and there's not a lot of people who look like us that are doing what we are doing. And so thank you for having me.
And then once again, we do thank you all for attending here. We know your time is of value, so once again, thank you for attending. As Nick was saying, the West End FC project, right? You had to have the community support in order to get the FC project approved downtown. First question, just want to know how important it is getting the community support behind your project, and then just provide an example of how it helped your project. Now we'll start with Kate.
I was going to defer to Nick. That's such a loaded question. No one is ever happy when development comes. I think recognizing that before you even go into a pitch is so important, because you're coming into a neighborhood. Most neighborhoods are already well established. There's a history element to it. There's a dynamic of this is how it's always been. We chose to be here. And so anytime something new comes in, you struggle with merging the historic value with whatever that new commodity is that's coming in, whether it's mixed use, whether it's residential. You have to find that common ground to not just get everybody on board, but to find that common ground and that common value that's going to say, this is something that we all want. There's bits of this that you want. There's bits of this that you want. And bringing that together to say, this is how we start the next chapter. I think so often communities get so focused on what the first chapter was, we can't seem to turn the page. But you also want to remember that story from what happened on the previous page, because we all know if you don't remember it, you're doomed to repeat it. So it's so important to make sure that your community is understanding the value, the importance, and how you build and you bridge that together moving forward. And as the developer that's doing the pitch, you've also got to understand that you come in and you tell the truth. So if you're planning on doing something, say what you can deliver. Because people remember when you tell them that they're going to get something and then it doesn't happen. I was just sharing with somebody earlier, I have some kids in our neighborhood that are still asking where their youth community space is, because that's what they heard in one of the first pitches for a development in our neighborhood. Fast forward 10 years later, these kids are now 14, 15 saying, where's my community space? you don't think kids are going to remember, but they remember everything. So imagine as an adult, that carries on. So you make sure whatever you promise, deliver. Don't promise until you know for sure.
Great.
Right. So again, key points is just make sure you tell the truth and make sure that you deliver. So anytime that we're speaking in front of these communities, we want to make sure that we emphasize that. Nick?
To piggyback, I learned something unique, and it's a different approach. Being from the West End, I'm not coming in, so I'm there. I know what we need. I know how far I got to go to Kroger's. I know how far I got to go to Target. I know how far I got to go to a restaurant. That's there. Now, what does the community want? So that's what Bach brings to the table. We listen to the community before we even put a project together. So once we realized what they wanted, and we went to our team and said, this is what we can do. This is the land we can acquire. This is the amount of money we need. With that, knowing what the community want, you're going to always have the community support. I'm going to tell you as new developers, if you don't have the community support, you could forget about your development. Because the way it's flowing now, city council looks at community councils as their eyes and ears. So what the community recommends, city council gonna follow. And it wasn't like that in the past, but it's trending that way. And that's how you bring all the parties together. So with us, we went to the community, we know what they want. Now we go to the community, to city council. This is what we want to do for our community. How can you help? With the West End, it's a blighted community. It's a opportunity zone community. Anything you name that it needs, we apply for it, and we do for it. So the community support is first. Don't think you can go and straight to city council and think you can't get the community input because they're going to send you back to the community. The reason you skip the community in the first place because you want to do something the community don't want.
Powerful.
Yeah, get that community support first.
Yeah, it's not a lot to add after both of those. I hate that I just went last. But I can give you just in our experience, even just with our project in Bay Miller, and it is funny that you keyed a phrase that is actually myself and my partner, Means Cameron's, our development company, another company, which is called Common Ground Community Development. And in the West End, and talking to my partner, and then having connections to our family as well, just understanding what that community needed. We led with that, right? We didn't go to the West End and say, hey, we want to put up a shopping mall in the middle of the West End, and that's it. Don't care who wants to see it or who doesn't want to see it, right? We actually came and we heard what it was that they needed. And this is a national problem. This is not just a West End problem. Nationally, we do not have enough workforce or affordable housing. Another issue, most of the neighborhoods that have a lot of us in it don't have access to food. If you go to the West End right now, you have Hooks. Did I miss anything?
That's it.
Richie?
And so what we did was, as a developer, make no mistake, first, I have to make money. In order for me to do these type of projects and work for the community, I have to do projects that make money. But when you're thinking about making money, you also have to think about how can I make money and how can I also bring something to a community that doesn't have it. And what we realized was that we can make money by offering housing, apartments, like we said, workforce and affordable housing. That was one way we were able to make money. The other way is we can make money by giving a small business the opportunity to set up his business inside of a community that needed what? Food. And so on our development, we have 7 residential units and 1 commercial unit. What do you think we are putting in the commercial unit? Food. right? Because that's what the community told us that they needed. And so the way you get the community to support you is you go to the community. You cannot, he said it, I couldn't say it any better. You will not have a development if the community does not support you. There will not be a stadium, a soccer stadium in the West End if it was not for this man right here, getting this community to support that project. And so if you want the community to support you, you bring them along the process and you make them believe in your project as if it was their project. I can't tell you the amount of meetings we've had with the community council, with all of the different community councils, right? And even just neighbors. When we got our project under contract, myself and my partner, we went around and we actually knocked on doors that were to the right and to the left of us, to just introduce ourselves and let them know what we were doing. So when they heard about it, they had a face to the project. It sounds like a small thing, but that makes a big difference. When you have a personality and you're able to connect with people and build rapport, use that skill, right? Go out and talk to the people in the neighborhood and let them know what you're doing, because you better believe if they don't know you, they will bring that project down.
So a very important point is, as we're speaking, is just making sure that we get the support from the community. But as a developer coming in and looking to do a project, where and how do I meet the community? And you can speak on your individual areas that you are doing development in or have expertise in, but how do I meet the community and be able to explain what my development project is?
I think that like Nick mentioned before also, every community has a CDC, Community Development Core. Some neighborhoods have multiple, right? But every neighborhood has one that is connected to the community. In our instance, ours was Seven Hills Neighborhood House, right? And we went to them, and they were speaking on the behalf of the community. Now, luckily for us, we had someone, which is Means, who was from the community. So we knew what the community wanted, right? We knew the community already. And so if you are not from the area, right, you can go and speak to the Community Development Corps. You can then, like I said, go by and roll up your sleeves and go door knock, right? Talk to the elders. You see elders outside. Most of the black people that you see in these neighborhoods who you see maybe sitting outside, they've been there for years. They know everybody there. They know who you need to talk to get support, right? They know what church you need to go in front of or what church you need to go attend to talk to the members and let them know what you're doing, right? You have to get out there. You cannot be afraid to actually talk and build rapport with the people. And that's people of different diversities, young, old, whatever that community reflects. You have to meet them where they are, and that's how you get their support.
Nick?
Piggyback off of Tony, it's being from the community and knowing what the community wants. That's easy. So I don't know how would it be if I was to go to Commerceville or Fairmount with the ideas that I have, because we're strictly West End driven. But this goes for any developer. You have to get with the community council. You have to get with the CDC. And like he said, he go door knocking. You also have to put the boots on the ground and talk to the people. And I guarantee you, from the drug addict on the street to the old person on the porch, they'll tell you what the community needs. And I hear it every day. Every day. So I have the West End Sports Bar and Grill. They've been begging for this for 2 years. It's still not here. But we're closer than ever. We have funding from the city. We have funding from other financial institutions. But that's just the beginning. We have 10 single-family houses that we're building from the ground up. 5 of them affordable, 5 market rate. We have a high-rise coming to the West End. Did you hear what I said? A high-rise with a Kroger's. That's what our community begged for. So that was my duty to do it. And knowing every community pretty much need a grocery store, every community need a drugstore, that's the simple stuff. So y'all see that big old TQL stadium, I don't look at it like that. I look at the total quality of life that's coming to my community. And that's all we ask for. That's the bare minimum, total quality of life. amenities so people can live. You shouldn't have to use the bodega as your grocery store. Hook and Fish should not be my Jeff Ruby's. It don't make sense. If you from the West End, just go back to the 70s. We had everything. We had restaurants, churches, bars, drugstores, dry cleaners, bike shop. We were a suburban neighborhood inside of an urban area. And it's gone now. And that fabric have to come back. And that's my obligation.
Kate?
Absolutely. Like, and to me, you're describing Madisonville, like 70s, early 80s. I'm that person that I say you go to the daycares, you go to the bars, you go to the barbershops. Because those are your first lines of your access to your community information. That's where your young parents are. That's where your elders are. That's where your generational knowledge is. You talk to your CDC. In Madisonville, we have a CDC, we have a council, and we have a business chamber. You talk to each of those entities because there's 3 entities for a reason. They all have different purposes, different missions. They're looking for different things to uplift in the community. You talk to each one of those groups. But you go out and you knock doors and you give out information. One of the easiest things in the world to do is just walk your neighborhood and say hello and to talk to people on the street. 90% of the world does not like to be in a meeting, which means 90% of your neighborhood is not going to go to a council meeting, is not going to go to a business chamber meeting, is not going to sit in a CDC meeting, but they're going to talk to each other. That's been one of the things that I keep hearing lately is like, oh, well, community councils don't matter. If 15 people show up, they're leaving that meeting and they're talking to 15 more people who are talking to 15 more people. They're representing your community. You don't discount those voices. It's so important that you do understand where each of those different groups are coming from and where each of your residents are coming from, because something like a grocery store should not be an option for any neighborhood. That's something that we get in Madisonville all the time. Well, you've got one in Oakley, you've got one in Hyde Park and Madeira and Mariemont. You guys don't need one. So everybody else has access, but not you guys. That's not a good answer. So finding, again, those rally points, to the Weston's point, those rally points that a community can rally behind, you will go much farther with your development when you have those things in place.
Thank you. So, Kate, I did tell you I had most of these questions are going to be straightforward, but I did have one hot topic. This word and question has been on everyone's mind as far as, especially all these developments that's going on within our inner cities, and that is, what is gentrification? And what does that mean to you? And just for changing the mindset of the people within that community of how gentrification or development can help the community.
I'm going to take this topic.
I was like, that's a loaded question.
So new developers. It's 2 key term words that can throw you all the way off. Gentrification and affordable housing. Those 2 things have everybody in an uproar because they mean different things to different people. How is gentrification even brought up in my community that I grew up in, that I see the last 30 years horrible, like a bomb dropped in it? The moment we find investors to clean it up, that's gentrification. Nah, gentrification is when folks from that neighborhood move to Montgomery and come down there just to say, this is where I'm from. Instead of staying there and giving back to it, making your home there. It's a miss that there's supposed to be ghettos. They're not supposed to be one ghetto. But the way they have our mindset, the ghetto, the suburbs. Now everybody want to get out of the ghetto to go to the suburbs. So what happened when all the people from the ghetto that could have changed the ghetto leave and go to the suburbs? We still a ghetto, but we worse now because all the support left. They just come to ride through and say, this is where I'm from. So when they bring the word gentrification to me, I look them in their eyes and say, where you live? And if you don't say you live in the West End, you can't tell me nothing about gentrification, because where you live at is total quality of life. But where I live at is gentrification because I want to make it a total quality of life. Just want y'all to understand there's two ways to that.
This is where it gets controversial, because I'm going to say yes and no. Because my family was displaced from the West End when the highway came through. They moved to Walnut Hills, got displaced again when Martin Luther King came through, ended up in Madisonville. I'm lucky I bought a house a half a block from my parents. Don't know if that was a great decision or not. Honestly, it's been amazing. But my entire family is there. My father is currently rehabbing my grandfather's house. I made a conscious decision not to leave. I've left and come back to the city a couple of times, but I chose to be in my neighborhood. There's a cyclical thing that you see happen with so many of our neighborhoods. We were taught early on that you didn't make it unless you moved to the Westchesters, to the Montgomerys. You know, that's when you made it. You're really something. Not you knew you made it when you were able to give back to your community and stay where you were and help build and grow. Now we're faced with a generation of our elders who can't afford to keep their houses. They're not being given good information, so they're thinking that it's a great opportunity to get some cash in the pocket and sell, then realizing, I've seen it in Madisonville, realizing, you know, a month later, I can't find anything that I can afford in the city. You lose your support structure, you lose your village. People come in and see the value, investors come in and see the value and say, oh, I can swoop this up for next to nothing. Your neighborhood changes. Good, bad, ugly, and different. The goal of good development is to make sure that while the neighborhood changes, we're still uplifting, we're still showing positive change, we're still giving the utilities, the infrastructure, all the things that are needed to make the village grow. Because if the village doesn't grow, we're stuck.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think it's something that has to happen simultaneously together. As we build up our neighborhood, right, and we do things like market rate housing, for example, right, where we are doing maybe luxury condos or things like that, right. At the same time, we need to be the developer. There shouldn't be a developer who's just focusing on just luxury housing. You're not doing any benefit for the community, right? At the same time you're doing that, you need to be doing affordable housing or workforce housing so that the people that live there, right, don't have to get out of the neighborhood just because you decided to plop your $50 million condos in the middle of their neighborhood, right? That's what gentrification is. Gentrification actually is when you come into a neighborhood and you develop a neighborhood, and then the people who come from that neighborhood can no longer afford it. And so if you're able to, which you should be if you're going to take this role of being a developer, this is a privilege, right? Being able to create spaces for people to live in, for people to enjoy, for people to get empowered by, that is a privilege. So if you take this role, you have to understand that you have to do both of those things simultaneously, right? You have to push that narrative to be able to sustain the people who are from there. And so I think what happens is that a lot of the time, right, and especially in the market, you have to know the market. Right, a lot of the times, like now, being that we're doing development in this era and this economy and what's going on now, like you just mentioned, if you sell your house right now, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be paying triple what you paid back 20 years or whenever you bought your house, right? And so you have to be very conscious of where our economy is going to know what type of developments to do so that you don't get that feedback from the community that you're gentrifying the actual area. And so I think that is one of the reasons why, I mean, we just did a project on Dayton Street to where, I mean, this house, yes, it is a higher end house, right? I mean, you're talking about $2,000 a month in rent. But at the same time, like I just mentioned, we have a project going on Bay Miller Street where the average person will be able to afford. So yes, we're going to spruce things up and we're going to, make the community look better, but we want to make sure that, one, also we give an opportunity to the people in the community to be a part of the progression of the neighborhood. So we hire contractors from the community, right? We get their input on our development projects, right? And so when you have that going on, I mean, you're educating the people, you're inspiring the people, right? And you give them an opportunity to be a part of your actual project. And I think you can't get negative energy when you have a type of model like that.
Right, so just to piggyback, I got licensed back in 2009. And what we got to recognize as a community is there's value within our communities. A lot of times what the problem is that we don't see the value, and then we end up moving out of those areas. And then other people who don't look like us see the value and end up coming in and sweeping in and buying those properties at pennies on the dollar. I can remember when Mount Auburn and Evanston, you could buy a house for $10,000, $15,000. And you can see what these houses are selling for now. These are the same houses that we all was walking back and forth, driving down the street from. And we didn't recognize the value. But it took for somebody else to see what the value was and say, hey, downtown is starting to come back around. They're doing a lot of development downtown. I need to be close to where downtown is. I need to be close to the bus routes. I need to be close to the city. So it's very important that we take this information and say, hey, what you may not see is almost like a diamond in the rough. You may see the coal, but it's a diamond underneath that if you start doing the work and start putting in the due diligence in it. So appreciate all the information that you're
I just want to add one more thing also, and it's also using your relationships, like the relationships that we all have, to bring jobs to that community. Also, perfect example, Bond Hill, we all know about K&J Seafood, Davis Cookie Company, all the things like that, right? I mean, you're talking about, one, Bond Hill was a food desert. And now you just brought maybe 20, 30 jobs, right, that are actually inside of the neighborhood to where the people in the neighborhood can go there and actually work and make money to be able to afford the housing that they have or the increase of the taxes because property values are going up. The thing is that we can't change what's happening. We can change how it happens. We cannot change the fact that money from California, Seattle, China, all over the place, they are learning about Cincinnati. Thank you to the Bengals, right? they are learning about our market. They're learning about our city, and the money is coming. And so it's smart. It will behoove you to go out and learn about what's going on so you can get a piece of the pie as it happens.
So Tony and I both are graduates of the REAL program, and you get inside
first class.
so you get insights to a lot of things real estate. And when I found out there's a $5 million housing shortage nationwide, 5 million houses. You know how long it's going to take to build 5 million houses? And when those 5 million houses are built, you're going to have to build 5 million more because our population is growing. As developers, we coming in when the grease can't get any hotter. Housing is needed nationwide, all types of housing, from affordable all the way up to market, all the way down to low income. It's needed. As a developer, go into that community, talk to them community council members and the CDCs and the barbershops and the churches, and go to them little football teams and go to them little dance clubs, and you're going to get all the information what you need, what that community need. For the West End, I know y'all probably sick of me talking about the West End, but that's all I know. We have 6,800 residents, and 5,300 of those are low income, 0 to 30 D restricted. You're not going to get anything for quality of life if you don't increase the income of that community. You have to balance it out. My goal and our team goal every door of those 5,300 not going anywhere. They stand forever, but we have to add on with the value side. When our kids see a poor and a rich, we're not millionaires, so that's middle class. It's rich to some, but it's not rich to the rich. That's going to change their mindset versus seeing the same thing every day. And if you continue to add low income to an already low income neighborhood, I tell them all the time, you're just creating another gang because it's territory.
You're doing what HUD did in the 70s and 80s.
And HUD is reversing that now. They saying that any neighborhood that has 20% or less of deed-restricted units, 20% is too much. And the neighborhood is starting to tilt down once it goes over 20%. The West End is at 75%. And it's been at 75% since I was born. So don't you think it's time that we start balancing it out, giving everyone a quality of life? So if low income is needed, there's areas in Hyde Park, there's areas where they got amenities that's gonna help these people thrive. If you put another low income in the West End, the only person that's gonna make money is Hook and Fish and the bodegas.
I agree with the balance.
It's a balance. If we
important.
balance it out, Cincinnati can thrive. We can really punch with the best of them. They already want to come here because, believe it or not, our market is cheaper than anywhere in the country. So they want to come here. Let's invite them, but let's balance it out throughout all of the 50 neighborhoods, and we'll be on to something.
I think it's the balance piece is so important. I think to your point of there's not a lot we can do. As communities, as developers, we can make sure that the wages that we're paying are living wages for our city. I always say if the lowest wage in the city cannot afford an average market rate apartment, we're doing something wrong in our city. We're not paying people. People's time is valuable. We're not paying people their worth. You have to have the mixed affordability. You have to have the balance in all of the neighborhoods. When you have that balance, you treat people differently. When you treat people differently, you start looking at your neighbors as neighbors. You start building that cohesivity because it's not just, oh, you know, the rich people over there or the poor people over there. It's all of us together. You see it, it's funny, in Europe you see it in other countries. You have mixed affordability, mixed economic demographics. Kids don't go to different schools. They all learn together. They thrive together. It's so important. It's something I think that our city needs to do. Our city needs to do a better job of. As residents in our city, we can help push that forward. To me, there's nothing more frustrating than going to Austin, Texas, and you see a big billboard that says "Move to Cincinnati." You're like, no, because you're bringing those salaries. It's great. You're bringing the salaries. You're bringing the talent, but then our housing stock goes up. You talk to our kids in our neighborhoods as the future of our generation. They don't really care if it's Corian countertops or if it's Formica. They want a clean, safe space to live. They want to be with their village. They want to be with their family. They want to be able to walk down to grandparents' house, to their best friend's house, and to have those relationships. Building those relationships when you have the mixed affordability just breeds a better generation of people for our city.
And crime goes down.
So one of the key words I just want to take away from this is just balance. And that's the most important thing about this conference is we all are developers or have the potential of being developers. We have to take this information back to our communities and start to develop our communities. We know what our communities need. We know what our kids need. Each one of us that is a parent wants to have a kid that grows up in a solid house, that goes to a good school district. But it takes each one of us to be a part of this community, learn this development process, and be able to implement that within our community. So very important, and just good takeaway from this last question. So unfortunately, we only have 45 minutes for this panel. So it was great just speaking with everyone. So just last question. Can you discuss a time when you face resistance during a project pitch And how did you address those concerns and ultimately gain support from the community? Unless everyone has been, support the community has been great. I think,
Oh, no.
I'm going to say Kate probably has a whole bunch of stories she can go over.
I've had great experiences and I've had absolutely horrible experiences. One of the fun things about being a community council president is you have no opinion. And people forget that you have no opinion. Your opinion is what is voted on in a meeting. So we've had two pretty big projects in Madisonville. One was our PLK development at Madison and Stewart. 3.5 months of meetings, going to Planning Commission, coming back, having a stakeholder group voted on, going and knocking door to door to invite people to this meeting to address concerns because there was a zone change involved. It's like, I always say it's like with everything, when the first meeting happens, there's like 60 people. When the last meeting happens, there's 10. The outcome of that project was great. From a community perspective, because the developer actually listened to the concerns of the community, from safety issues to things like when cars pull out, the lights are going to shine into my daughter's bedroom. Can we adjust the level of the driveway so that doesn't happen? Parts of the project were actually redesigned because of the community input, because of the work with various city departments. And then the flip side of that is attempting to do a CBA for a third phase of a project where we had 3 phases of a project at our main city center, Madison and Wetzel. I can't stress enough to developers in the room, when a project starts, sometimes a project can be very quick, 18 months. Sometimes it can be a 10-year project. A lot of things change in 10 years. People leave, people move in. What you thought you wanted, what you've gotten, what you think you need now, all of those things need to be addressed. We attempted to come in at a late hour, again, at the bequest of the general body of a community council, to attempt to do a CBA to address concerns that had since arisen after the first 2 projects. It didn't work, didn't go well. Again, middle of COVID, hours and hours of Zoom meetings, going through different conversations, being very thoughtful, 11 pages, and heartache later, nothing was done, nothing happened. We're now looking at a space where we still don't have any retail a couple of years later. I look at that for me as a community fail on my part, as a leader, because we should have done better. We should have addressed our concerns sooner. But from a developer perspective too, it's the coming back and listening and saying, hey, let's take a pulse. It's so important because when the project started 10 years ago, I didn't have a 9-year-old child. So when you think of that in terms of what everybody's going through in different parts of their life, what people wanted 9, 10 years ago, what you're seeing happen now, and now what you're saying is, oh, wait a second, we didn't think we wanted that, but now we do. If you're gonna do a long-term project as a developer, take a pulse, listen, think about what's needed, think about the future. And I always say, ask the kids, because the kids will tell you and they'll be honest. Kids at a very young age will give you the pipe dream. And so often the pipe dream can actually be built, because those are the ones that have to live with it. A lot of times, to Nick's point, he's in the West End, he's from the West End, he's never gonna leave. He's got a vested stake and interest in it. So often we see developers that come in, they build something, they leave. And they tell people, don't take it personal. When it's your community and it's your village, it's always going to be personal. And so from a community's perspective, we try to encourage and coach our developers who are coming in. This is very personal to people, and that's okay. So I think my first point was not everybody's gonna be happy. But understand that so many developers come in, they build, they leave. We drive past it, we look at it, we wonder what's gonna happen to it. You want something that's gonna last. You want something that, my child's a 4th generation Madisonville kid. I want her kids to look and be like, yeah, my parents did that, my grandparents did that, still standing, still looks amazing. It's part of the community moving forward.
So as a developer, I'm gonna give you some fine points. You're gonna get rejected with every project when you're coming out the gate. Just understand that it's not a no, it's not, nah, you're not gonna do that. but it's a slow yes that you have to turn that no into a yes. What I mean by that is it's a lot of red tape. That red tape can just drive you crazy till you just give up. 90% of the people give up. That tape there for a reason. You're talking about tax people dollars. You're talking about grant money. They have to be accounted for. The people that's issuing those funds, they have checks and balances too. So I had this mistake. I had an idea, I put the project together, and I'm thinking in 6 months it's done. I mean, literally, it's done. I got it mapped out. Woo.
3 years later.
Ooh, 3 years later, like you said, the red tape, the amounts of emails, the amounts of calls, the changes. So I came to realize the overall won't change, but the plan is going to change. When you're dealing with bureaucracy, a turtle is going to move at a turtle's pace. It's when the turtle stops, that's when you get worried. So with all your projects, it's going to be a journey. That's why you're a developer. You pop something in your head and you want to bring it to reality. That's not easy. And no one is going to buy into it but you at first. So you have to have the story. You have to have the personality to deliver it. When I talk about the West End, y'all feel me. When Tony talk about Bond Hill, y'all feel him because y'all know this is something that's truly needed. What y'all don't know, even though everybody know it's needed, your project gonna get, that's a good idea. Bring me more. Bring me more. Everybody want more and more. Till now, I got to the point where I'm gonna check the boxes for them. That way, they not gonna ask me for more. And that's how you have to do it. You have to do that work for them because you gotta think you're not the only project. It's 100 projects that they have to give a okay to. Do the work for them. And that yellow tape, that red tape, it's thick, it's long, but when you get through it, it was worth it because you didn't just get a development project, you actually got knocked upside of your head over and over and over, so it don't have no choice but to be right. So go into your project with the intensity that it's going to get done, but know when you tell the first person, it's 1,000 more you're going to have to tell. And then they're going to have to go back. And then it's going to have to go back again. That's why 3 years, that's pretty much the minimum for a development project. So please don't be like me and going in and say, yeah, we break your ground in 6 months.
Tony, wrap us up, 30 seconds, wrap us up.
Yeah, and actually I should have the shortest amount of time because honestly, and I think that this was actually a record. I remember someone saying this at the last West End Community Council. We were like one of the first projects to get 100% unanimous support on our project. And so, I honestly, I don't, we haven't really had a big issue with pushback from the community. Now, from the government and the city, that's a different thing. But I think that there's a couple of key things really quick that will help with that pushback. And he mentioned it briefly, but it's your story, right? The thing that I think separates myself and my partner from a lot of different other companies is that we look like your kids, right? We look like you, right? And on top of that, the people that are in your community that may be tearing down the community by selling drugs or whatever it may be, guess what? I'm their favorite guy. I inspire them, right? They look up to us. We help them transition from the streets to real estate, to something special, right? And so I think that when you walk in that light and you inspire people to change their lives, to actually be a part of the progression of the neighborhood, you can't push back against me, right? It's very hard to do so because at the same time, if I'm making money and developing your neighborhood, I'm also saving your nephew who can't get right, just keep standing on the corner, right? I give him a job and he comes and work for us, or he gets introduced into real estate and want to do something better, right? If I'm now helping you from a personal standpoint, right, and helping inspire because you couldn't get to, that individual and we're helping you there, right? It's very hard to see what it is that I'm doing as something that is negative. So
let's give our panelists another round of applause. Once again, Kate, Nick, Tony, I greatly appreciate you taking the time out, sharing these jewels of information. The panelists will be here, so if you have any questions or definitely want to network, exchange contact information, please do. But once again, we thank you.